There's definitely a lot going on in Akron. I feel like the infrastructure is always growing.
I like what I see in terms of the trends. The market is supported, population, demographics, property stock. It just checks a lot of boxes for me.
One of the biggest things that helped me scale was I used to self-manage.
I know that if I'm getting a property from the Yoke team, it's going to be new and up to code and renovated.
So I'm here with Manny. Manny is a real estate investor that's bought a house off of me and looking for a second turnkey property. Something that's cool about Manny is he is the only person to ever visit me 2 times. So we have a really good relationship, spend a lot of time together. I forget exactly where you're from, Manny. Can you let everyone know a little bit about yourself?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
I'm from New Jersey.
Nice. So he's from Jersey.
Yes.
He just loves visiting Ohio. It is so wonderful in the winter.
It is. I really do have, I have a good time. Every time I visit Ohio, I have some business contacts out there that I visit, and I have used those visits as an opportunity to connect with you, Steve, and to ultimately invest in a property with you.
Yeah. Awesome. So just a little bit of background about investing stuff. So outside of the real estate you own, is there any other investments that you're involved in?
I have a lot of investments in the securities market. It's actually the line of business that I'm in. So I am familiar with the world of stocks and bonds and ETFs and mutual funds. And I've been interested in investing in real estate for a long time as a way of diversifying my portfolio.
So the big play for you is diversification. Is there any other reasons you really looked into real estate?
Well, I'd say diversification was the first reason. And the more I learned about investing in real estate, the more I grew to like it. I'd say at this point, there's so many things to like about investing in real estate, especially for the perspective of someone who's familiar with securities investing. Investing in real estate, there's so many other benefits. There's tax benefits, there's depreciation, there's a lot that you can do if you wrap your investment in the business the right way, which I hope I have done. There's really a lot of things that it was uncharted waters when I got into this, but I'm learning very quickly. And there's no substitute at least from an educational perspective, there's no substitute for just diving in and taking the plunge.
Yeah, I always say, like, when you do something for the first time, you learn way more than anything you've read for the past 4 years.
Completely.
I know I was like every other investor. I started reading about real estate at a little bit of a younger age. I was in college, and it really triggered my interest in it. And that's why, as soon as I graduated, got a job, I bought that first duplex. That first 6 months of home ownership was way different than anything I've ever read.
I had a very similar experience, maybe a little later in life than you, but for sure. I read a lot, thought I was an expert, and then reality hits you in the face when you're signing that stack of papers at the closing with your first investment property.
Yeah. No less than 200 pages, 200, something like that. A couple initials.
Enough to give you writer's cramp.
It's kind of cumbersome, to be honest. I'm always really shocked on how big it is. Not living or being from Akron, being, 8-10 hours away. What gave you, when we connected, what gave you the confidence to say, hey, I do want to move forward with this property and that?
I'll take a step back before I answer your question. I did not wake up one day and pull out a map and say, aha, Akron, Ohio is the place for me to invest. In New Jersey, we have our own real estate market here, but I don't see the kinds of opportunities locally that I found in Akron. The struggle for me with the aspirations of becoming a real estate investor, it was really difficult to figure out how to connect the dots. I knew I wanted to invest in real estate. I knew what my price point was, but I looked around my local market and I didn't see anything like that within several hours drive. The New York MSA. So it's a very high price market. There's a lot of hair on some of the properties, a very competitive investor atmosphere. So I knew what I was looking for. I didn't know where to find it. And then after doing some research and looking at different markets, doing my due diligence on trends and what's going on locally in a lot of markets, Akron kind of won the prize. I like what I see in terms of the trends. The market is supported, population, demographics, property stock. It just checks a lot of boxes for me.
There's definitely a lot going on in Akron. I feel like the infrastructure is always growing. It may not be one of those cities that people think about outside of the local, regions of the states touching it, but it really has a booming economy that, has jobs that are, people are looking for. The affordability point for people is great. I mean, there's not so many places that you can get a fully renovated house and be paying $1,300, and have a little yard and maybe a fence too, if you're lucky. I think a huge draw for tenants. So you read about everything. This is kind of a unique question for you. You read everything when you were doing your research. what really stood out, maybe 2 or 3 things when you were here those 2 times. And we pretty much hit every area that I do, rental flips in, or even own my own rentals in. Is there anything like 2 or 3 things maybe that popped out to you?
Yeah. My first impression before you and I went on the tour of the area, I'd never been to that part of the country. The first thing that hit me was it was nice. There were neighborhoods that it looked like a place where people would be able to live, and you attract good families and people who are looking for good jobs. And it really struck me that I didn't know what my expectations were, but there were some neighborhoods where they're nice houses, well maintained. You could tell right away by looking at a house, just, if are they mowing the lawn? Are the shutters falling off the windows? Those are the kinds of things you look for, and it would jump out right away. I did not see a lot of that. So that was the first thing. Another thing I saw, and you alluded to this already about the economic growth, a lot of new construction, industrial properties and small businesses in some of the downtown areas that we looked at, mom and pop restaurants that are doing just fine. So that's another indication of the health of the economy, and one that I took as a very good one.
Yeah, I would agree. The economy is definitely booming. There's road construction everywhere with the highways widening in and all that stuff. So I always feel like that's a good thing when the city's putting into the infrastructure. Kind of cool. You got to go to the property management company. Having that in-house property management company, how did that make you feel compared to having an outside property management company?
Well, I'll tell you, that really what clinched it for me in terms of making the decision to invest. Again, as an out-of-state investor, I had some trepidation about getting into a market where I'm almost 1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Property management was something I sort of heard about, but didn't really know how to find a good property manager or what to expect when working with a property manager. And I would say my experience with you and your team has just been phenomenal from the very beginning. So you introduced me to the people in the office. So I felt a connection right away with the people who are engaged with me and helping me support my tenants. Everyone from the office staff, the people who manage the cash flows of the rent, to the guys who wear tool belts and go out and fix things when they break. And I think having that team that from top to bottom, you have all the parts of the property management capability, experienced people, nice people to work with, it really made me feel very comfortable.
Yeah, I think having the staff that's welcoming to everyone is always huge, because I feel like people that buy properties from out of state need that to make that connection, to feel that someone's taking care of their property, which is ultimately we're providing a service to someone, the tenant who's paying for a service. So we always make sure that we're providing top-notch service is the goal. So something we drove around, I know I pointed out some of the properties that I own as well. I mean, being the person that sold you the turnkey rental, do you feel more confident in your purchase when you know that I have, I think, over 100 rentals now in the same market that you're buying in?
Oh, absolutely. That to me is a further confirmation that it's a great opportunity to invest in the area. I know from the conversations you and I have had that you truly believe in investing in the area. You're in it every day. You have a lot of your own capital tied up in it, and it's not for any other reason other than I think you want a good investment, and it definitely confirms to me that those good investments are there.
Yeah, I think there's great investments, and it's always tough because there's ones I sold that I always regret. I'm like, man, why did I let go of that one? But I always joke with you can't keep them all, right? You need to have a little bit of balance, the flips and the rentals, from my side, because you're not having a W-2 job to bring in, money, and then also then taking that money and reinvesting it into my own rental properties has really been able to help me scale. So that's, one of the reasons I still have to sell some stuff, right? So I know we talked about, stabilizing investments. Do you feel like adding the turnkey rental to your investment portfolio as a whole has helped stabilize, some of your investments overall?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, it's a it's a different kind of investing for somebody who is familiar with the securities market. And it gives me a level of diversification that I wouldn't have ever had been able to have otherwise. It's I also feel like it's much, in many ways, it's more steady, it's more predictable, and frankly, it's been more profitable than a lot of my other investments in the securities markets.
That's crazy to think. Like, you are full time in the securities market, and you're saying that the real estate is more stable. That's, I think, groundbreaking and super important to recognize that just how stable these rentals are. I think that's not true for all real estate. I think some of those beach markets are going to take some big hits in Florida, but I feel like at an Akron, Canton market, like, we're kind of price point is at the bottom, right? We're one of the cheapest markets in all of the country. So I don't think it can really drop anymore. It is the bottom. So at the end of the day, even if the value drops a little bit, worst case scenario, you still have a cash flowing asset, right? At the end of the day.
Exactly.
So that's one of the reasons I always dove hard into it, is outside of being born and raised here. I truly think it is still a good market. I was just fortunate enough to be born here. As far as, being a passive investment, I've kind of heard the biggest thing is that first, 30 days in closing and that week or two after, just to make sure everything started off smoothly. Outside of that beginning setup, has it been pretty hands off, or are you handling tenant calls? Are you handling maintenance requests or anything like that?
It couldn't be more hands off. You said it right. There was some work to be done in the first few weeks of setting everything up. Working with your team, they held my hand every step of the way. Everyone was very responsive and helpful. Everything is all online. You guys do a great job. You have technology that you have in place so that the tenant pays their rent through a web portal, and then I can watch the payments come in through the portal, and I have the financing on the property gets taken care of in an automated way, so just draws right off the bank account, and everything at this point, is a few months into it. I'm pleasantly surprised at how smooth it's been. I thought it might even be more involved than it is. It's really, I just have all the apps on my phone. I check them when I want to see what the numbers look like, but other than that, there's not a whole lot to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I one of the biggest things that helped me scale was I used to self-manage, right? And I finally turned over my properties to the property management team, right? And then I was like, I freed up an extraordinary amount of time, probably like 20, 30 rentals at the time. And once I gave that off, the buying of properties and the scaling of the flipping really took off, which was huge for me. But it's hard to let go of your babies when you're like here locally, right? But instead of taking your phone calls and trying to dispatch someone to go fix something, it was all handled for me. So I got back I spent hours because I'm self-managing, right? I got all those hours back every week and just invested into, what I do on a daily, finding properties, right? So
yeah. And as an out-of-state investor, that option, self-managing, was not an option that was even available to me. Right. Investing in that market. So I was committed to finding property manager that I could rely on. Mm-hmm. And again, if I had found a property manager that I felt confident about earlier, I might have invested earlier, but it was worth the wait to find you guys.
Yeah, no, I think the property manager makes the whole investment piece. If you don't have a solid, like, not just a person, you need like a team. Like, you need to have someone in the office, you need to have a maintenance guy, you need to have a leasing agent, you need to have all these things, and that's what the team brings you. But you don't have to hire all of them individually; they're already placed for you. So literally just got to sign the property management agreement and you're good to go. And they'll start sending you your bank payments immediately as soon as property's rented out. And so I think that's a big thing, being hands off, so you can continue to work your W-2 job or whatever else you're doing to not take away from that or take away from family time or whatever it is. Because I think the ultimate goal, I think a lot of people, at least I always thought, was like, the investments will buy that time freedom that I'm looking for, or that stable life after retirement, or whatever that might be. So I think that having that solid team is really helpful.
I couldn't agree more.
So, being that you're the most seasoned investor that I've ever sold a property to that has come to the city of Akron, since you've been here twice, you're the highest ranks. What is something that I'm missing that would be good to tell someone that's looking to buy a turnkey rental from me? What would be something that
I'll tell you something else that I was, again, pleasantly surprised about, and that's the quality of the work that your construction teams do. You know, a lot of these houses, I know you've told me a little bit about how you acquire them, and sometimes you get some pretty banged up properties that need to put it mildly, right? I mean, I know you set a very high standard for what you want your rentals to be, and that really protects me as an investor, because I know that if I'm getting a property from the Yoke team, it's going to be new and up to code and renovated. It's going to be that helps me in two ways. Number one, it attracts a better quality of tenant, I believe. I think the tenants look at the properties, and you know, you've told me that you make decisions about certain design elements, and you know, the way you lay out number of bathrooms, things like that. That's to attract the best tenants, and that's important to me as an investor. And the other thing too, as an investor, that having everything renovated, high quality, it's fewer headaches. You know, there's if you have a new hot water heater, you don't have to worry about it breaking, or at least you have less of a chance that it's going to break. Anything can happen. But the point is, you know, that is again, in some of the due diligence that I've done, not every turnkey rental property is going to be up to the same standards as what I saw from the properties that you and I looked at together.
Yeah, I know with the Yoke team and Akron Turkey, we try to set that precedent that, like, this is our baseline and we need to be at that. I know these houses being 100+ years old, I think doing those renovations made you feel comfortable with the age of the home. Is that a big thing too?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I live in an old house here in New Jersey, and I know, oh boy, it always feels like there's something to fix in your own house. So I could, and you know, these old houses, there's a lot, but as they say, as long as the bones are good, you know, you can modify and modernize everything. And really that's the approach that I think you and your team have taken.
Yeah, we definitely, the mechanicals are always the biggest focus for us. I mean, obviously the finishes are important, right? Especially from the tenant perspective. But I think from an investor perspective, those mechanicals, for me personally, always trump a little bit of cosmetic finishes. So that's why we want to make sure we got to have a good balance of both. And we've talked about this. All of our mechanics, the idea is that they'll have 10 years of life plus. It's like your CapEx items, your majors. So like every hot water tank almost gets replaced, because the lifespan of a hot water tank is 10 to 15 years. So if it's older than 5, we have to replace it. And that's pretty much every house I buy. I should be Ream's #1 client in Akron, Ohio. So we do that, a ton of furnaces, ton of hot water tanks, a lot of basement waterproofing, wall rebuilds as well. Foundations are nothing to ignore. I always found that, you know, fixing the foundations and making sure they're in great condition is always huge. We even completed a wall rebuild that's 25 degrees out today. We had boxed it in so it had enough heat to dry and stuff like that. We had the furnace turned up and some torpedo heaters, just to make sure that it, you know, cured correctly, because you can't just leave it in the elements. So we created like a little green room around it, sunroom or whatever you want to call it. Because even though it's cold, renovations don't stop.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I know some people that we sell properties to that live in Florida or California or Texas are like, snowing up there and you guys are working. I'm like, yeah, unless it's like 12, 15 inches, we're all at work.
Yeah. That is something we have in common here in New Jersey.
Yeah, you know the drill. You're not afraid to drive in the snow. So, cool, awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Manny. I hope you enjoy the flight to Cleveland. It is raining and cold, so bundle up.
Yeah, I'll bring a coat.
So cool. Hey, have a good one. Thank you, Manny.
My pleasure, Steve.
All
Anytime.
right, I'll see you. Bye.